Hello, World Singers. My name is Tyler.
And my name is Brooke.
And this is Cosmere Conversations. This is a special recording of the Dragons panel that we did at Dragonsteel Nexus 2025.
Specifically, the Dragons in the Cosmere panel, because there were multiple dragon panels.
I forgot that.
Yeah, we were dragon heavy this year. So what you're going to hear next is the recording of that panel. Make sure you stick around to the end where we will be back answering some of the questions from the audience that they asked after the panel ended. Thanks everyone for being here at the Dragons of the Cosmere panel. This is such an exciting topic because we've recently gotten a lot more information about dragons in the Cosmere.
And I just want to say that the first question submitted is, who is the hottest dragon?
We're off to a great start.
I think we are off to a great start. You may have missed our Villains in the Cosmere where we asked who is evil and who is hot. Some of the dragons were on that list, but maybe it's another game that we can play here. I think that if Dylan, you're feeling okay, I don't want to rush you right now.
No, I feel happy and smiles. I feel great. I feel great. Let's go.
That's what we want to hear. So that's going to remain up for a little bit of time, that QR code, and then we have some slides that will go along with the presentation. But let's do a couple of quick introductions. Could you tell us who you are, starting with Rachel?
Hello everyone, I'm Rachel Rada. I am mostly affiliated with the Sanderson Collectors Guild and happy to be here talking about the best dragon, Corvelium of Est, who is also the hottest dragon.
Who is also the hottest dragon. Agree. I mean, we can get into it. But.
Hi, I'm Dylan, also known as Cosmere Horizons on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where I talk anything and everything Cosmere. A bunch of rankings, reviews, Nexus content, and a bunch of smiles and laughters. And for my vote, who the hottest dragon is in the Cosmere, without a doubt, Medalentorius, for two reasons. One, her name's Medalentorius, and two, if Hoyd's type is Yasna, I can only imagine what the dragon looks like. So.
That's an amazing take, and I love it. My name's Brooke Shotwell, and I am one half of the podcast Cosmere Conversations. I have to agree with Rachel. I think the hottest dragon is Cultivation, Corvelium of Est.
I like where we're starting. I like the vibe here, late night on day 3 of Nexus. My name is Tyler Shotwell. I'm the other half of Cosmere Conversations, the sillier, less beautiful half, but I am in full agreement with Brooke and Rachel. By far, the hottest dragon is Corvelium. We will perhaps get some opinions from the audience on that later, but I wanted to start us off bringing everyone up to speed with dragons in the Cosmere. Brandon said when he was writing originally, so this was early 2000s, there were a great number of dragons kind of in media in general, and especially as he started to get a little bit more popular, Elantris, Mistborn, the movies and animated shows regarding dragons were all the rage. And so while he loves dragons, and it's a huge part of his kind of fantasy journey, the idea of writing dragons just didn't seem to suit him at that time, and he slowly worked them in the background, as he does, to bring dragons more to the fore. But I think that with a name like Dragonsteel, that we are all at, that he named his business after, it should be no mystery that dragons are hugely important to the Cosmere. And now what we can start to understand is that they have played this role for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years, and we are going to continue to see them impact the far future of the Cosmere. So, for everyone, this is all spoilers. We have to talk about everything.
Yeah, there will be spoilers for Isles of the Emberdark, so if you have not read that yet and you don't want it to be spoiled, please, we won't be offended if you want to leave right now.
Having said that, we see it. It's totally fine.
We love you.
Yeah,
Enjoy the book when you read it.
It's going to be great, and we appreciate everybody coming here. We know this is, one of the last panels, but I'm giving them time to run away. You don't need to run.
Run away.
We have to talk about Isles of the Emberdark. We have to talk about the Seeker projects and making all of these connections. And so I want to throw it over to the other panelists and kind of just start to go through the slides, which I believe, Dylan, you have some control.
Do I have control? Oh, I have control. Why'd you give that to me? Okay. Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fun.
Here we go.
Oh, we're doing some trivia now. Let's see. So, how many dragons have appeared on the page in the Cosmere? How are we? Are we doing hand raising, or are we?
Well, yeah. So I want you to take a moment, think about it, and I want to say that this is appeared on the page in any way, living or dead, named or not. This is dragons on the page, okay? And so we're gonna go A, B, C, D, and it's gonna be just a hand raise. So if you think it's 6, raise your hand. Excellent, that's a good number, hands down. B, 3, okay, thank you. Lower the hands. C, 15, excellent, okay. And D, is it 12? Okay, that's pretty close. What do you think?
Here's the thing. I know you guys are probably thinking, like, it's not fair for, like, us to answer the questions. But here's the thing. Tyler made the question. I have no idea what the answer is. My guess is going to be, I don't think it's 6 or 3, because there's too many named ones, and to think of, like I remember, like, it mentions Frost has a sister, so, like, that's gotta, my guess is gonna be 12. I'm gonna go with D.
Okay, and I think those were the 2 different options. So A, 6, or D, 12. And can we go to the next slide? Because the answer
There are 12 dragons that we currently have seen mentioned, maybe not named, but at least mentioned on the page so far. We've got a brief list of all of those here with sort of an honorable mention as well.
Oh, the honorable mention. Okay, the Secret 13. This is only my theory, so I'll go off on a tangent already.
We're already going into crazy theories and speculation.
Welcome to Cosmere Conversations. This is the 12 that we have, are all mentioned, and then we have this scene on the Spirit Shores in Isles of the Emberdark. Hoid is present when Starling arrives. Starling and Hoid get into a conversation. Hoid says he is looking for Frost. He needs advice of Frost. Starling says, we haven't seen Frost in many years. We don't know where he is. He's lost. Then Starling asks, have you spoken to your wife? And Hoid replies, I haven't spoken to her, on part because we are not on speaking terms. She doesn't remember that we were married. Now, this could be anything. This could be anyone. But my speculation is Starling is asking, Hoid, have you seen and talked to your wife here at the Spirit Shores, a place where he could visit his wife if she is a dragon? And the reason why she doesn't remember is because she is fading. She's doing what the dragons do at the Spirit Shores, which is take time to fade away, and part of that fading could be losing their memory. This is starting the panel. Normally I end the panel with the crazy speculation, but we're right here up at the front. So
now I have to do my job as the other half of this duo and like reel us back in and say, let's start at the beginning with some textual evidence. So what does it actually mean to be a dragon in the Cosmere? There are a lot of different iterations of dragons that appear throughout different types of fantasy. They have different abilities, different appearances, etc. etc. And in the Cosmere, dragons are two-stage beings. They have a human form and a dragon form. They mate and give birth in human form, and then they, around 30 years old, no, 80 years old, right?
30.
They go through...
No, Starling is
30.
about...
Okay, I was right the first time.
Yeah.
Around 30 years old, they go through their first transformation where they come into their dragon form, learn how to fly. They spend a few years in that form kind of learning their dragon abilities. And then they have the ability to move back and forth between those forms. And then this two-stage situation is said in text to be, quote, the wisdom of Adonalsium, and their ability to be in human form is supposed to help them empathize with humans.
Brandon actually yesterday just gave a timeline, too, of the greater Cosmere, because while the shattering happened only around 11,000 years ago, the actual Cosmere dates to millions of years ago. And so dragons, most of them that are currently alive, pre-existed before the shattering, and we don't know how long their actual lives are.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, now that you're on the topic of Brandon's words of Brandon's from yesterday, I think we'd be remiss to not mention the thing that he said about Lift. I remember we were in the front row sitting together, freaking out. Brandon yesterday canonized, and correct me if my wording might be a little bit wrong, about the fact that when Corvellium was making Lift's powers, it's inspired by, and she was able to know how to use those powers, utilizing the same system that dragons use to pull investiture from the spiritual realm.
Yeah, he basically said that she was probably inspired by the powers that dragons have, which, we'll talk about their abilities in just a second, but no, it's all good. We're gonna get there. Dragons in the Cosmere are not immortal, but they are very long-lived. We see dragons, to Tyler's point, who have existed for potentially millions of years, at least 10,000 years, and they also do not have that typical dragon trope of breathing fire. These are not fire-breathing dragons in the Cosmere, but they're said to have other investiture abilities and attacks that we haven't really seen on the page yet, and I'm very interested to see what that looks like as we move forward in the Cosmere.
I know. Brandon gave us a dragon, and then we were all excited for that, and he's like, but this dragon has no powers. This dragon has handcuffs. And it's like, cool. Thanks, Brandon.
Rachel, on that note, how do you feel like the dragons we've seen so far in the Cosmere compare to dragons just more broadly in literature or movies, TVs, whatever? Just, what do you think about the dragons as they currently exist in the Cosmere?
I need more dragon.
You need more dragon. That's a good take. I like that one.
I mean, I love dragon fantasy, so, obviously having that connected with the Cosmere is a huge deal for me. I kind of like how they're very subtle and in the background, and like as we move in technically into the space age, we are actually seeing more of the dragons, which is usually, associated with, more, I guess, medieval times. So it's kind of a cool juxtaposition there.
To be getting the technology and the dragons kind of at the same time. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk more about dragons' abilities and what they can actually do, as far as we know, in the Cosmere.
Yeah, one more trivia question, if Dylan can help me out here.
I got you.
Yeah. So this one is, what did the dragons hide behind a door that the Scadrians unlocked with the intensifier? This is from Isles of the Emberdark. Take a moment to read those answers. Only vote once. Did they hide A, dragon eggs? Raise your hand if you think it was dragon eggs. You're all so smart. Raise your hand if you think it was B, a key to Yolen's cognitive realm. C, was it a Dawn Shard?
So smart.
It's A.
And, if it was a D, a map, you wouldn't want to raise your hand at this point anyways.
We do have one.
We got one. We got to go back there.
So the dragons, part of what they are responsible for was hiding of at least this one Dawn Shard. Now, the door being opened didn't matter because the dragons had already moved the Dawn Shard. But there's the talk about the connection ability with the Dawn Shards, that they can be traced because they're such wells of investiture. So that's what the Scadrians were interested in. However, they didn't find the Dawn Shard there, but we get a little bit of hint about what the dragons have been doing all this time, protecting powerful objects. And then I would love to talk about their abilities.
Yeah, I mean, as Dylan already brought up, they have this ability to directly tap into the spiritual realm and use the energy or the investiture from the spiritual realm to kind of sustain themselves. Which, do you want to talk more about how that like might factor into Lift?
Yeah, I mean, well, we see Lift, right? Because Lift, my take, Lift's amazing. Love Lift. Thank you. And I'm so excited to see book 6 and her interactions with cultivation in the flashbacks. I think it's going to be awesome to see. And what I think is really interesting is her ability to turn nutrition and food into investiture. What we'll end up seeing, we're Wind and Truth spoilers?
Yeah, all
everything.
spoilers.
Perfect. In a world without Stormlight, how the spiritual realm investiture is going to be the main source for Lift moving forward. Do you want to touch on, I don't know the exact arcanist, like how that works. I just know it works and it's cool, okay? I'm a vibes reader.
Love it. Some of the other abilities of dragons include the fact that they are so highly invested that it said their souls resist interference, which means that they are not able to be altered by something like a Nahel bond. They would not be able to become a Knight's Radiant, for example. And then they have this capital C connection to their followers, where they're able to have life sense not only of the people around them, but also of people like literally worlds away on other planets. They're able to sense them and feel their emotions, their desires. Starling says that, quote, "She can sense those who had devotion and were seeking her kind. The prayers of the faithful connected to all of her kind who answered questions and gave support." End quote. And then they're able to kind of take away pain from their followers, which is very similar to allomantic emotional manipulation, which I thought was really interesting and is potentially like the original source of that power.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but that's really interesting. Let me like go into a coma and process for a second.
And this is, of course, the ability that gives them this position of being revered as deities in the Cosmere, at least pre-Shattering, and in some places, even in the contemporary Cosmere, dragons are worshipped as gods, partially for this ability.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still thinking about what you just said.
Expect a video from Dylan in 10 days.
Yeah, check out Cosmere Horizons. But no, I would think especially the worshipping is something that's very interesting that we're going to see the development of over the course of the Cosmere. We've seen Xysis / Foil in the future of the Cosmere, and comparing, like, that seems like a very modern version of worship and wealth, and like how that all ties together, especially when you tie into what it's going to look like in the Dragonsteel trilogy, for example, of what that's going to look like, of more of a classical fantasy worshippers, they're a god, opposed to now maybe more in a modern fantasy, we see that worship more of like they're in the economic control of the Cosmere.
Yeah, totally. And I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about Xysis in a bit. Should we go into our specific characters?
Yeah, I think we have one more of the trivia questions, and then we'll go into the characters themselves. And perfect. So there is an unnamed planet home to a variety of non-hexapedal, lesser dragons, known as what? See, I gave you the easy one.
Luck.
Yeah, this is a really deep poll.
Phone a friend. It's 50-50. No, I gave you the easy one last time, and now we have this one. So, if you believe it is A, they are called younglings. Raise your hand. Okay, thank you.
Couple votes.
If you believe it is B, wyverns, raise your hand. Few more. Excellent. Dylan, I'm going to let you say this one just because
I love saying her name. Spawn of Metal and Torius.
I'm going to be honest, that's the most metal name. But who believes it is D, Drakelings? Okay, that is the winning vote in population, and it is the correct answer. They are known.
You guys know your stuff. Well done.
Yeah, this comes from just a Word of Brandon interview that he did in 2023 when he mentioned that the greater dragons that we are talking about are not the only dragons that exist in the Cosmere. There are simply more planets than we are currently aware of. This doesn't need to all be read, Dylan, if you have the full quote, but it's up there. And
here's our textual evidence, our citation.
Gotta have the citation here. Now, if we can get into dragon culture and individual characters. Rachel, do you want to start us off a little bit just about like kind of the culture of dragons?
Sure. So dragons are treated as gods, kind of like what Brooke alluded to earlier. They're considered gods. They are raised to, be expecting to be worshipped and prayed to by, their followers. As of Emberdark, we have all of the dragons have retreated from political life, even though Zysis is pretty deep into economics, and you can't tell me those aren't related.
Theoretically, we've retreated.
So there is a dragon settlement on Yolen called Larkau, which was constructed by the dragons during their primordial service to Edelnausium before the rivalry between the Fane and the Unfane began. And they are also in Silverlight, which is the Shadesmar city-state that started as the collection of dragon palaces.
Yeah, we see Silverlight for the first time in
so
Isles of Emberdark, which is so cool. Yeah, who loved that? Cheers for Silverlight. Yeah. Finally, exactly. And I was very interested to learn that it originated as like a dragon settlement.
Yeah, I wonder how that transition happened to where, now you've got the university and there's all this commerce and all that.
It's got to do something with Chris. It has to do something. Chris probably put the dragons in their spot. I'm not going to lie. I love Chris so much.
Well,
she showed up and was just like, this is going to be a university. Cool. And then I think, do we have one more about the Spirit Shores? Another huge reveal from Isles of the Emberdark. Such a unique setting that I didn't know about. I had no way to anticipate that this existed. It is a place seemingly in the spiritual realm. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think it's in the spiritual realm, not the cognitive realm. It seems to be kind of a corner of the spiritual realm where dragons go when they meditate, which is like what they do instead of sleeping. And then also where they go after death / to like wait to transition through to the beyond. They just turn into statues there and like hang out.
What I think is really interesting, because you were alluding to the fact that you hadn't heard, didn't see the spirit storms coming at all in Isles of the Emberdark. However, how many of you picked up the fact that the spirit storms were mentioned in Wind and Truth? Okay, we got a few hands. So in the final chapter, basically after everything goes to crap, there's a Hoyd POV, and it's right when he's like, Dalinar, you're the worst, rah, 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 you ruined everything, and then he's like, he goes to seek some wisdom, and so the quote is along the lines of, he goes to meditate to the special corner of the spiritual realm of the dragons, where he's always been an interloper, which seeing him in the spiritual storms in Isles of the Emberdark, it's very clear that he's an interloper in there. The fact that he's able to show up, unless there's another place like the Spirit Shores that's very similar in vague description, it's very clear that Hoyd goes to the Spirit Shore in the end of Wind and Truth.
He goes multiple times, I think, in Wind and Truth. After reading Isles of the Emberdark, I'm like halfway through my third reread of Wind and Truth, and there's a few different times when he is trying to consult the wisdom of the dragons, and he's meditating, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of the book when he is looking for advice about the contract, when he realizes the contract has gone wrong, and he goes to ask Frost and then Frost's sister for help. Yeah. He is accessing the Spirit Shores, which, when Wind and Truth came out, we had no way of knowing. Yeah. And then after Emberdark, it's like, oh, Dang, that's what he's doing.
And I think it's really interesting that he goes there to get wisdom throughout the thing. Like, after he goes to the spiritual realm, he says the exact quote is, he realized Dalinar Kholin was a storming genius, which is a funny quote. But what I think is awesome contrast is he goes there for wisdom and wind and truth, and however many hundreds of years later, he's the one giving wisdom to Starling on the Spirit Shores. So I just think there's a cool parallel there.
I think it's interesting with the Spirit Shores, like, if in the spiritual realm, but, like, even there, the dragons are setting themselves apart from, like, everything else. It's like, this is our corner.
Yeah, they're like, we have our own private heaven. We don't want to be with you humans.
What is, to me, interesting about the Spirit Shores, and again, this is very speculative, and you just gotta jump on the train and ride with me into Crazy Town. I think that the dragons are so heavily invested that they cannot immediately progress to the beyond. They have basically in life created a cognitive or spiritual shadow. A cognitive shadow we see all the time, speculative right now, but like the Blackthorn could be labeled a spiritual shadow. I think the dragons do that by having so much investiture in life, and then while their physical body may die, this Spirit Shores is where they slowly fade away instead of staying involved, like some cognitive shadows, Thydakar, do, and they like remain active. The dragons very clearly live for a long time, but then separate themselves, like you said, and kind of move away from interaction.
Yeah, what I was going to say, which goes along with this philosophy of non-intervention that we see espoused by some of our main dragon characters.
And let's talk about those characters a little bit more with, first, one from Isles of the Emberdark, and that is...
a trivia question.
Yeah. Do you want to do this one, Dylan?
Sure, I would love to. What is Starling's draconic name? Consider your options. It's not Starling. There's your hint. Okay. Actually, I don't want to read them out loud because the only one I pronounce right is going to be the obvious answer. So here's how I'm going to compensate. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of all of these. Okay. So raise your hand if you think it's A, Alaran de Dre. Raise your hand if you think it's B, Ilistanderista. Okay, yeah, we know that's how it's said, but I had to for continuity. Would have given it away. Does anybody think it's Corvellium Avast?
No, that's not what
Or Corvellistia. See? Wow. Well, majority of people got it right. The answer is B, whatever, she said it right. Whoever called it out over there.
Yeah, Starling, Ilistanderista, is our main character in Isles of the Emberdark. She is Frost's niece and Hoid's apprentice. And in terms of her appearance, she is leucistic, which means she has very pale, powder white skin, as well as white hair and eyes in both her human and her dragon forms, which is said to be good luck in dragon culture. When we meet her, she has been exiled and then put in manacles that prevent her from changing form or for using her powers at all. And we get just hints of why this happened to her. I think the most descriptive is that she was punished for embarrassing powerful people in dragon culture. I have so many questions about like what is happening in dragon culture. They seem to have a lot going on. And then she's this very optimistic person with a really strong sense of self and sense of morality that seems to be in contrast with a lot of other dragons, especially her uncle Frost, who has this very non-interventionalist attitude that we hear Hoid like complain about all the time, that Frost isn't doing anything. Of course, Hoid is always meddling and doing the absolute opposite thing. And so Starling seems to have learned a little bit from her mentor in terms of getting involved in human affairs.
I want to bring a question from the audience. Thank you for submitting earlier. And we'll start with Rachel for just a rapid fire response. Starling has these manacles. Do you think other dragons have these manacles placed on them as well? Or is this a unique thing to Starling?
I mean, the fact that she has these manacles means that they've been developed, so they've been used on somebody before, even to test. So I don't think she's the only case, but she's probably the most severe case, in my opinion. Full speculation.
Yeah.
So.
Any other different responses from either of you?
Yeah, I can see a world. This is pure speculation. I'm going to sound like Tyler. We know that in Fires of December, Brandon's writing another book where Hoyd is up in some deep trouble. I could totally see Brandon writing one of these secret projects from Hoyd perspective, where he is being restrained or restricted by some early prototype of this technology, and that would be his struggle. That's completely speculation. I'm not Brandon. I don't write the books, but I can totally see a world in which an early prototype of this is used, maybe in a Cyberpunk Mistborn Era 4, and then this is the full-blown out usage of this stuff. So basically what we're just saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense for a culture that has this much power and the ability to have so much influence on the world that they would need some form of self-policing, some form of being able to control any potential, black sheep in their midst that may cause problems.
I wonder. Well, I guess because she can't get them off, they couldn't be aluminum, but it's aluminum kind of blocks that investiture, so.
Oh, yeah, what metal are they made out of?
Yeah.
Or what if it was a metal that could hide perpendicularity? What if it's related to the fourth moon? Not to make everything about the fourth moon, but
everything's
about the fourth moon.
We will get there eventually, you crazy, crazy people. I'm slowly infecting everybody. That's what I've realized.
The panel just devolves into wild speculation.
I think that, as Rachel said, it's probably something that has been used before, but I would say as we are reading in the future, previously if I saw someone with a metal band on their arm or something, I would go Feruchemist, if you must. But now, if I see someone with a bracelet or what would appear to be manacles, my brain might actually go to, is that a potential dragon that's also being limited? Is this a widespread form of prison for, not widespread, but somewhat widely used version of limiting dragons? And so, keep your eye out for those types of things. And then I think we have Dylan for Zysis, is that right?
Yes, I thought it was a different one, but I can do Zysis. Yes. Wait, because we got Zysis, and after Zysis is...
Cool, I got Zysis.
You got Zysis? Yeah, I know who I have, and I'm very passionate about who I have, but I can also do Zysis if you...
No, I love that for us. So, Zysis has been mentioned a couple of times now, but in Tress is where we see him first and kind of most grand.
Yeah, I think, is he the first dragon we see on the page?
As a dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got hints about cultivation and then confirmed, but yes, I think this is, as Howard Lyons' art depicts here, the dragon in its full form. And really, I think where Brandon was able to play around a little bit more with the dragons he so loves and wants to introduce, it was kind of lower stakes in a secret project like Tress to bring a dragon in. In his human form, he's said to have ebony skin, be bald, and usually wearing nice suits. In his draconic form that we see in Tress, he has an onyx hide with silver metallic ridges that outline his features and silver mane or silver hair. He is of the currently living dragons, so not the ones of the Spirit Shores, he's one of the oldest. Pre-Shattering, he existed, probably knew most of the 16 plus Hoyd in their whatever version they existed in previously. He's the main patron of Silverlight University, and he is, because of that position, able to take the research that emanates out of Silverlight and use it to his advantage. He basically has right of first use of anything that comes from Silverlight. And while there's not an identical version of this in our own words, like a direct comparison, if you have a university, it's like one of the reasons why the United States has invested so much in their universities, they're great, is because powerful research allows you to make powerful advantages and strides forward, whether that's nuclear technology in the middle of the 20th century or anything that happens in the future. It often emanates from places like Silverlight first, and Foil, Zaisis, uses that to their advantage to maintain his control, maintain his power over people, which is contrary to what the official dragon position is. He is bending the rules of dragon society by maintaining such powerful economic and intellectual power over the people of Silverlight and therefore the entire Cosmere. From the text we have, quote, "We are meant to rule nations, found corporations, lead religions," end quote. And that is probably like the fundamental dragon philosophy, and Foil is one of the best examples of that we've seen so far.
Can we talk about his research? Because he's got some really significant interests, I think.
Yeah, the reason we see him interest is because he's interested in the spore seas, and specifically the decomposition of aethers. We know that Lumar is a subtype or a branch of the overall aethers. There are aethers that exist in the Cosmere. They're different than what's going on Lumar, and it might be that unique nature that Foil is interested in, and it might also be Lumar's geoposition in the Cosmere, because we know after Isles of the Emberdark that Lumar is kind of like a gas station. They need the spores in order to power their ships, and both for fuel and breathing, all that stuff. And they use the spores that come primarily off of Lumar. It might be because you could go to Daughtry, when it was fully functioning. You might be able to go other places to get aethers, but they might be far away. And Lumar seems to be in a good physical position in the Cosmere, so it's like a crossroads, basically.
There's also a Ars Arcanum quote, so it's written by Chris. This is from Rhythm of War, and she says that Foil's goal is to achieve control over the aethers, and she also says that this is in some way related to the strides that Navani makes in the science of intent and anti-investiture. I have no idea how those things go together, but I almost have this quote memorized because I've read it so many times, like trying to figure it out. What do spores have to do with intent and anti-investiture, and like how does that help you control them?
Raffo.
Thank you, Dylan.
I'm a professional.
One of the questions from the audience, and I think Foil might be the answer, but they said, do you think dragons will align with a faction in the coming Cosmere Wars or remain independent or pulled away? Right here in the front, that was your question? Awesome.
Thank you for your submission.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Is Foil going to take a side? Are other dragons likely to take a side? Or do they pull back the more conflict starts to play out?
That's a good one. I don't know. I could see it. I don't see them taking a side. But I don't necessarily see them being apart. I mean, I know they have the whole non-intervention thing, but I see them trying to just dominate everything.
Right.
Conquest.
Yeah, you have more worshippers. I mean, Foil is trying to pretty much hoard all the natural resources by doing all this research on Lumar. I mean, I could see where this becomes like a kind of Cold War situation.
Yeah, because Zaisis is kind of trying to benefit from all sides, right? Because he also kind of gets his little paws in on the Dromonad system and their whole situation going on.
Yep.
I think very much that we will see dragons taking, just to answer outright, I think dragons will be taking a side in the future conflicts of the Cosmere, specifically looking at, but I think each will be acting in their own self-interest to a certain extent. Each dragon that we've seen has their own goals and has their own missions and does their own stuff. And so, like, Foil, Zaisis, we'll definitely see a future of him or figuring out as much as he can to profit as much as he can, to rule as much as he can from an economic standpoint. We might see Starling and her crew taking a side of what they feel like is right, because they like to root for the underdog a little bit. We'll see a lot of Frost doing nothing because that's what he loves to do. And we'll see Corvellium, if she's alive, but we'll get there. But we'll see Corvellium probably just fending for herself. Sorry, I know you like Corvellium, but I'm just saying she's running.
Well, let's move to the next slide, because you mentioned Frost, and very quickly, so that we can get to Corvellium. Who's better? I think that I just want to mention that Frost, another one of these very old dragons, he's a friend of Hoid's. They have a disagreement, and this is played out in a short story, maybe like short story. It is more like an essay that we saw several years ago called The Traveler, where Hoid and Frost have a discussion, and we hear from Frost directly, who says, quote, "Join me in my oath of non-intervention. The Cosmere itself may depend upon our restraint," end quote. So that kind of answers your question from his perspective. He thinks we need to step out of any type of Cosmere conflict. Hoid disagrees. He's like, you need to be active. Maybe similar to the argument that we see play out between Harmony and Kelsier. Kelsier would be playing the role of Frost. He's like, you need to get more involved. You need to be more active. Harmony playing the role of Frost. I need to be more interventionist, or non-interventionist. Stay out of the fray. We probably won't see, much more between Frost and Hoid, but I do think we're going to see a lot between Kelsier and Harmony. Interesting, after Isles of the Emberdark, we also know that Frost is a friend of the original traveler of the Elecan people. Is it Kakoban or Kokoban? I always... Kakoban. Okay. But they had traveled through the Emberdark, and the spirit of the... Oh, man. Daguara?
Yeah.
Yay! Okay.
Yeah, we know what you're talking about. The big snake dude.
The big snake dude. That eventually is the key plot point of Isles of the Emberdark, all leading to the Elecan people arriving on... Oh no, the planet's name is not Patchy. The planet's name is Drominad. Yeah, first to the sun. First to the sun to them, and then Drominad to the broader Cosmere and the Scadrians. I think that Frost is likely to remain a blank slate and not get too much more, and I think that's different than Cultivation, who we have heard a lot about, but I also think we're going to see more of in the future. Do you want to take this away, Rachel?
We'll agree. So...
Wait, was that a cue for the next slide or no?
It was.
Yep.
So now to the best dragon, Cultivation, Corvellium Avast, or Cor. Her human form is heavyset, shorter woman with brown skin, tightly curled black hair, and brown eyes. And I love this depiction by Miranda Meeks. It's one of my favorites.
It's so good.
Her draconic form is deep brown skin lined with silver dragonsteel. And her one flaw is that she picked poorly.
True.
But who of us hasn't at some point? But she is also considered the heretic because she was raised as a dragon and to be worshipped as a dragon, and she didn't want that, and so she said no thank you. And then another fun fact from the Stormlight RPG that I just read a few hours ago is that because of her presence on Roshar, like the Rashadium and the Santhids and a lot of the animals gain greater sapience.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's in the Stormlight World Guide. I was like, no way.
Good pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cor, I see her as such a kind of spiritual successor to Starling in this really insistent belief that she not be worshipped. That's like her whole thing, right? When we see these flashbacks in Wind and Truth, when they first arrive on Roshar, she's like, hey man, I don't really want to be a god. I just want to hang out and be me. And her bad choice doesn't let her do that, but that's what she wants to do.
Speaking of bad choices, who out here is like, when you think of Tanner, you're like, he's not that bad. Okay, so that's a lot less hands than I thought. That's a lot less hands than I thought.
Guys.
Raise your. Oh. Okay, now raise your hand if you're anti-Tanner. Raise your hand if you didn't raise your hand.
The majority of you. Okay.
Ambivalent about Tanner.
To be honest, that might be an okay opinion. I think that the older a bean is, the harder they are to actually know or understand, because we don't have, one, the ability to like fully comprehend what it means to be 10,000 plus years old. But that's fair. I'm fine if you don't want to vote there.
I'm so curious because Rachel is so passionate about cultivation. How do you feel about the fact that she leaves Roshar at the end of Wind and Truth? What do you think about that?
I think that, all the strings that she's pulled over thousands of years were a calculated risk.
Yeah.
She knew that. And, she has access to future sight. So, she probably saw the possibility and said, okay, if X happens, then I'm out and I'm probably going to go hide with Valor and figure something out. That's just...
Do you think she's still like working behind the scenes, or is she like, oh no, my plan failed and like that was it?
I think she's pivoting at this point.
Yeah.
Like, she's taking a step back, reassessing. I mean, the fact that, Taravangian has, both honor and odium now, like, he's stuck for a minute because everybody's like, oh, now we need to look at Roshar. So she's like, let me go.
Yeah.
Let me see what happens over the next few hundred years and then make my plan from there. So.
And I think looking at Retribution's future plans, assuming he's going to continue out Odium's doing of trying to take out as many shards as possible, I truly think, the reason I think Corvellium's not going to survive to the end of Stormlight 10 is that I think she's going to be the first target, because now with the addition of Honor, Odium has a little bit more restraints, and we've seen Harmony have restraints, and so Retribution's going to have their own restraints, and I think Honor's not going to have an issue with killing shards who broke their non-intervention pact, and Corvellium's the biggest example of that. I can totally see a world in which Retribution's going after a shard like Mercy, for example, but plot twist, Mercy's vessel changed so he can't go after that shard anymore. But I think Corvellium is prime for the killing for Retribution.
I agree, and that's probably part of the reasons that she ran too. Like,
Yeah, that's definitely what she got out of Dodge.
I want to at least point out that before she leaves, it is said to be a direct impact of her decision or power or whatever you want to call it, the draining of the Pure Lake that surrounds the region of Azamir is kind of her last little action, maybe a gift that is given to the people there, because of course that region is not of Retribution. It remains part of the coalition. That's where Adolin is. It is the only part, I think, that we have, except for Urithiru, that is not surrounded in clouds, darkness. I don't know exactly what the makeup is, but like it's not dark there. So like that's where the sun still shines, and I think that the now moat, a gigantic lake, however you want to envision it, that surrounds that region, may prove to be a great boon to the people of Azamir.
Nicely done.
Yeah, thank you. As it protects them and from any physical attacks from Retribution's forces.
Do we want to get to our last character?
I do, but I want to ask one question from the audience about cultivation, because I think it has an easy answer, which the question is, were dragons the true cause of Adonalsium's shattering, or was it humans? Also, are the dragons with shards, like cultivation, more powerful than humans with shards? And I think the first part can be answered very directly, which is every species was at the shattering and is represented as a shard. So
the Yolish species.
The species that existed on Yolen, so Shodel, human, dragon, are all known to be shards. I don't know the breakdown, the numbers of like how many, but I don't think anybody does except for Brandon.
Confirmed is 2 Shodel, 2 Dragon, the rest are human. But there's 3 vessels that we don't know.
Right.
Confirmed meaning Chan Kosar sounds like a Shodel name because it's multiple syllables. So it's not confirmed Chan Kosar is a Shodel, but probably is.
And then the second question I wanted to ask you, do you think that there is a power differential or maybe just like an understanding of the use of shard power from the dragons?
I think that's really hard because like you have to take into account like the variability between individuals, right? Like did they send their best 2 dragons and their best 5 humans, or is it, you know, just Joe Schmo off the street?
Right.
You don't know. You know.
We know that they sent 1 bad human in Rasa. Or not. Okay, fine. Someone out there is like a Rasa apologist. But we know that that person compared to Ati, they're said to be different as vessels. One is like actually kind of evil as a vessel, and one is said to be a very good person.
Yep.
And so that, as you're saying, it's a personal difference between those 2 humans that were sent. And so I think the dragons could have differences too.
I don't think that dragons would have like extra shard powers as a vessel. I think they would have the advantage of maybe knowing better what it would be like to be a shard vessel, and they are used to being worshipped, which we see with Core, so they kind of have an understanding going into that situation of what it's going to be like, that maybe they can acclimate a little bit quicker than a human would be able to.
And I don't think it's going to be that... Sorry, I know there's claps for... I'm going to make the counterpoint. I don't think it's going to be that big, because we see anytime like a human picks up a shard, their mind starts to expand, so I don't think it's going to be a significant difference. However, there might be some they might be familiar with that.
There you go. I got it.
And speaking of shards, for the same time, I want to get to our last vessel.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about the one I'm most passionate about, and we know a lot. We got some professional art up on the screen.
Dropping this new art for you, Dragonsteel Nexus. You are all welcome.
This is a debut.
She's hot.
So, what do we know about Valor, aka Metal Antorius, which is an awesome name? Not a lot. They're a shard, probably still alive. Has completely vanished, which I'll get to in a second. And most importantly, Hoyd's X. That's exciting. I know we theorize about Hoyd's wife being a dragon. Could they have gotten back together? However,
Has a type.
He has a type. That's what I think. I think he has a type, right? He dated Valor, but his wife is also a dragon.
is Valor's sister.
Someone else from the audience, we don't know the answer, but they asked how big is the dragon population? If it's very, very small, you might be right.
Yeah, but a lot of what we know about Valor is theoretical. And speaking of which, I think, tying into a complete advantage, I'm just going to get into my favorite part of this panel that I'm most excited for, is the Valor theory. And I feel like I need to stand up for this. Okay.
He's
now,
very passionate about
I'm very passionate about it. I feel very confident that I know where Valor is. Rachel, I'm going to have you take care of the slides. Okay, so where is Valor? We don't really know. However, in the epigraphs of Day 5 of Wind and Truth, we see a letter from Endowment to Hoyd. Now, in this letter, Endowment says she has her own plans to deal with Odium and is not going to tell Hoyd because Hoyd's going to mess everything up, which he usually does. And all that Endowment says is that Endowment kept her part of the bargain in a plan against Odium and is doing her part. It kept her part in the bargain with Odium and did not go in person to request aid. Now, why did Valor request aid to deal with Odium, right? So somehow there's someone who requested Valor requested is like help Odium's trouble, and Endowment help without going in person. Now, what is something that Endowment could have sent to Valor that she has very much control over? Nightblood. Now, here is the theory. The theory is that Valor is on Roshar. Valor on Roshar, Odium is there, and is like, there's a situation, and so it sends to Endowment for help. Endowment then sends Vasher, which Vasher's purpose as a return, because each return has their own purpose. Vasher's purpose is to get Nightblood to Roshar, and there might be something else, but I think that's a big part of what Vasher's point of being a return is. Sends Nightblood to Roshar. Now, how do we know Valor's involved in this? Now, let's get to why do we think Valor's on Roshar. So, Todium, Taravangian Odium, can't find Valor. When he becomes a Odium, she cultivations like, look up at the stars. And he's like, wow. And up there, he's able to see 14 of the 16 shards. The one he's not able to see is Reason, because I think Reason's the one for an Iriali, but that's a different theory for a different day. And not able to see Valor. Now, why can't he see Valor when he's looking up? Because he's not looking down, is what the whole looking up part of thing is. Additionally, we find out about the fourth moon in the Wind in Truth. Now, the fourth moon is able to hide Odium's perpendicularity from the shards, so it stands to reason that it would also be able to hide the power of Valor. It's the only thing that we're able to see that significantly hides vision from a shard, and so tying the fourth moon, being able to hide Valor, has significant weight to it. Now, here's where Valor takes action. In the scene in which Zeth kills Taravangian, and then Taravangian takes Nightblood to kill Raze, there is a distinct line, end quote, about bravery. What ties in line with bravery? Valor. So the theory is that Valor, under the cover of the fourth moon, is on Roshar. Then, once Nightblood is sent through Endowment, Valor uses her ability as a shard to make Taravangian brave for the first time. In that moment of Valor, he's able to kill Raze, and that's how Valor and Endowment take out the threat of Raze. Now, the fourth moon could be tied to Valor because the tones of Roshar, the Chasm Fiends are said to have 4 different voices. 3 of those voices are in line with each of the 3 shards. Why is there a 4th random tone that we know nothing about? But if the other 3 align with a shard, the 4th one probably aligns with the shard. All I'm saying is I think Valor's on Roshar. And lastly, this is the crackpot part of the theory. Yeah, that's like I still feel sane after that. So, we know that Hoid's in every Cosmere book. Well, not the short stories he's mentioned, but for the most part, in every main Cosmere book, Hoid makes an appearance. So it stands to reason, we see Hoid at the end of Mistborn Era 2, that he's going to show up in Mistborn Era 3. And he's probably going to be back on Roshar for Stormlight 6 through 10. Now, what's going to get him back onto Roshar? Someone said it, Valor. Okay, so, but here's the thing. There is a word of Brandon that there is only one dragon who is a vessel. Not originally, but currently. So, Corvellium, Valor, that doesn't make sense. My theory is, Valor herself, Medalentorius, we don't think she's dead because if she would have been shattered, he said that, Todium says that he would have been able to feel that. So I think that Valor, or Medalentorius, leaves the power of Valor. Whether she gives it to someone else or just leaves it on Roshar, I don't know. And I think Medalentorius is going to show up without the shard of Valor in Mistborn Era 3 to get Hoid to go back to Roshar. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
And in 6 minutes. That was incredibly impressive, Dylan. I want to provide a little bit more support for this, specifically the concept of Valor as a long-term true tone of Roshar. So often we hear about Alethi culture, their fighting nature, and it's all done for honor. It's all done to get the Tranquiline Halls, and we hear this over and over again, like they're very honorable people. But we know, because we have more direct experience with Tanavast and the power of honor, that what honor is actually concerned with is making and keeping oaths. The concept of bravery or valor, fighting nobly side by side with your friends or your lovers, and going into the darkest periods and coming out again, that isn't associated in any way with honor as it is described in the Stormlight Archive, but it does kind of line up with valor. I think that valor has an influence on Roshar, and that they have been secretly infusing themselves with the planet by disguising valor and kind of the feeling of valor and the potency of valor through honor, like using honor to distract people from the fact that valor's power is growing. I'm just trying to help you out, Dylan.
No, I appreciate it. Yes, sorry, I just used all my energy. Yep. And now I'm exceptionally tired, but like I agree wholeheartedly.
Can we poll the audience? Who agrees with this theory? Raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay. Who is not sold on this theory?
Security?
Okay, most people agree.
We have some work to do, and that's okay. I like that there's a large number of people who like this valor theory. Rachel, any thoughts on valor or the position of any of our dragons going forward in the Cosmere?
No, I'm still digesting that valor sermon.
Sorry, I should have prepped you a little bit.
Like you're like walking, and I'm just like, yeah. No, I feel like I needed to go do a reread, and
there's always another reread in store, and I think that one of the things that we're going to do for the 15 minutes, take a few more questions, and then we'll go out into the audience and get a few more. But I want to make sure that we hit one that kind of came up multiple times and that multiple people asked about. And that is dragons and humans having children. What does it mean when a dragon, able to change their forms as long as they're not, as long as they're not Starling. What does it mean when they have a child? How does that child interact? Do they appear as human? Do they appear as something else?
Are they lift?
Are they lift? Dylan's brain is broken and he's very tired, so I'm going to throw this first over to Rachel. What do you think about human-dragon hybrids, or they're children of humans and dragons?
That is interesting. I wonder if, they're just like dragons that never get a chance to transform because,
The Drakelings that were mentioned briefly earlier, maybe?
Well, I mean, because the dragon children don't get their dragon form until they're 30.
Oh, okay, so they stay as humans.
They just stay as humans.
Got it.
But maybe they have they're more highly invested than, they have to get something from, the dragon parent. Maybe they're more long-lived.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how,
I agree. Yeah, I think it is possible. I think they would probably stay in a human form and maybe have some extra powers. Maybe they do have the ability to access investiture more easily. Maybe they have the kind of indestructibleness that we see from dragons. Like if Starling literally walks through a fire and her shoes burn off of her feet and like she's fine. So maybe a child, so cool. A child of a dragon and a human would have those kind of abilities.
That's an excellent point. I think that one aspect that is on display, stay with me. I mean, you guys have been here for 85 minutes, so you're with me. We've seen this. We've seen this on the page. We know exactly what the answer is. A human has had children with a dragon, and they are the intelligent spren on Roshar.
What?
The intelligence. They are sharks, and that they are first and foremost sharks.
Yeah.
100%. I agree.
Those aren't dragon children. They're shard children.
They are the combination of a human in Tanavest, who, yes, is a shard, and a dragon, Corabellium of Vast, who, yes, is a shard. But they are described as their children, the intelligent spren, honor sprens, cultivation sprens, so on and so forth. I think that it's potentially a child of a dragon could exist as a cognitive being only, and that comes into the physical realm partially, or under extreme circumstances, that they are cognitive beings. Not all that we've seen, but some that we have seen, and they are their friend.
No.
Yeah.
It's gonna have words with me.
Because you can't discount the fact that the children between that human and dragon are children of shards, and I think that kind of supersedes any sort of
I agree.
biology of the vessel.
Yeah.
I can't discount the fact that I love your passion, though. Like I love
Dylan and I are gonna get a glass of wine after and just be like, fourth moon.
I thought of an answer to the question while my brain was breaking. And
Okay.
I actually thought of 2 answers, and my brain hurts too much to choose a side, and they are mutually not exclusive. Or mutually, whatever. They don't work together. One is that just simply a human and a dragon can't have a child together.
Hoyt has twins.
If that were to happen, okay, you're right. Hoyt has children. Okay, so we're gonna pivot to the second answer. Well, Hoyt, yeah, never mind. Hoyt can do whatever he dang well pleases. My theory is we've seen a big part of dragons is that their spiritual web is affected and drastically changed. And another magic system where that happens is Mistborn. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's right. And so a Mistborn is able to have, like, someone with a spiritual web that's been affected is able to have kids with someone with a normal spiritual web, and that does lead to the child being a spiritual web, or having an affected spiritual web. If a Mistborn has a child with a human, the child has a chance of being a Mistborn, is the general consensus. So it stands to reason that a dragon having a child with a human, that dragon would have an affected spiritual web, potentially being a dragon. However, if I feel like that's the case, there would be a lot of dragons, but maybe dragons know this and are very cautious about who they have children with. That is another way to look at that.
But I think you might be conflating spiritual DNA with regular DNA. It's kind of the same thing like with the shards, right?
Yeah.
Like yes, a Mistborn can have a child with a non-Mistborn, but they're both human. So
That's true.
I want to leave you with one question up here. Then I'm going to go into the audience and get a couple more before we say goodbye. And the final question that was pre-submitted is Noadon in the Spirit Shores?
Yes and no. I was with Cosmere Academy last night, and we had a really long discussion about this. So this is on behalf of me and Seth. Noadon is in the spiritual realm, not exactly the Spirit Shores, is our theory.
Yeah, I think
And like
that's
his
right.
physical, like he goes into the spiritual realm way back when in the day, and he's still there actively, which is why he remembers things between Dalinar's visions.
I have a lot of questions and theories about the thing we see that calls himself Noadon that are not appropriate at this moment for this panel, so I'll just leave it there.
It's Hoyd. No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. So I'm going to take a question. Go ahead and ask me. I'll repeat it.
Hi, it's not necessarily a question, it's just 2 observations. That
Give
I
her the mic.
Okay, so the first one is, I think a relevant thing when talking about dragon and human relationships and potentially children is to pull something from Dragonsteel that I hope is still valid. Dragons are Fane and humans are not.
Yeah, so dragons are Fane and humans are not. And that might be an important aspect to think about when talking about the coupling of dragons and humans.
And the second thing was about what I have not heard a lot of people mention, but something that was brought to mind for me, is that Reason's vessel, Eurydius, could also be a dragon name. It's simpler than the other ones, but it doesn't feel like any of the human vessel names that we see.
Yeah, I agree. Reason's name, while a little bit simpler than other dragons' names, could still be a dragon, and that would tick another mark in the dragon column box for vessels. Right here, what's your question or theory?
All right, so Dylan, first off, nice fit.
Nice fit.
I love your Valor theory. My only question with it is, if Valor sent Basher with Nightblood to Roshar to have Taravangian kill Odium, that whole thing was brought up with cultivation, right? That was her cooking pot. And so how do you explain Valor knowing that cultivation was going to be cooking like that when Basher came there? Or was Basher the one that was supposed to be doing the bashing? And it just didn't happen. And it played out nicely that cultivation was in there cooking as well. And so Valor came in underneath and was like, hey, let's give it a little push. And lastly, I know I dented you, but to support you, I like what you said about Valor separating itself or themselves from the power, because we kind of seen that with Dalinar when he gave up honor, and he told honor, like, you're going to have to start learning how to live on your own and learn what it means to, you know, what honor is truly about. But I know you can't really do that right now, so go ahead and do this.
First of all, great question. I am going to say for how my interpretation, it's a great point, because this is something for this.
Give cultivation her credit.
Okay, yeah, sorry for being, never mind. Yes, but this is probably something that both Valor, Cultivation, and Endowment were all involved in. Whether Endowment knew Cultivation was involved and Cultivation knew Endowment was involved, that's to be seen. But I can see a world in which Valor and Cultivation have a connection because they are both dragons, where they're able to communicate that sort of way, where Valor's kind of the mastermind behind that whole plan, and basically goes to Cultivation saying, hey, I have this pointy stick, can you get someone to put this pointy stick in this old guy we don't like?
I love that.
And I think we have one more question over here.
Based on the regenerative capabilities that we know Hoyt has, could he not be a half-dragon? Could one of his parents be a dragon and one of his parents be a human? Or could he be an example of a half-dragon rather than a full dragon?
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to Hoyd, anything is possible.
Dylan or Rachel, do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, he was literally blown up, and he came back.
That scene is so funny, by the way. Terramangian!
Okay, I'm going to go with one more question, and let's go right here. What's your question?
Okay, so so you probably couldn't use a normal hemalurgic spike on a dragon because they're resistant to that kind of thing. But what if you used a god metal hemalurgic spike, because those are weird?
Okay, could you use a god metal hemalurgic spike on a dragon? Probably not a normal hemalurgic spike would work, but do you think a god metal hemalurgic spike could hurt a dragon or influence them?
Yes, no further explanation.
Can
Rachel,
you
Brooke?
get a hemalurgic spike through Dragonsteel and scales?
Right, that's my question. Like, we have seen such intense indestructibility from dragons. Maybe there's a metal that could get through. I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know if it would be aluminum, really, but maybe there's a metal that has, like, a specific power.
Silver.
Maybe, but I don't think it would be a
have to be a
blanket, like,
Dragonsteel
all
spike?
god metals.
We have people in the front saying Dragonsteel Spike, which I think is a really interesting concept.
I don't know if that's a god metal, though.
That I don't think.
Right.
Yeah.
But okay, so what about this, just for full speculation here at the end? A Dragonsteel spike that's a little bit like a Racium dagger. So it has a bead of some type of god metal or a thread of some type of god metal in the center. But then on the outside, it's Dragonsteel, which then can do the piercing.
Yeah.
And then the god metal does the magicking.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Okay, I think what I would love to do is two things. One, say that if you still have questions or theories, I'll be over in the corner for 15 minutes before the next panel, and you can ask those. I'll give them to the panelists up here, and we'll get answers to you. I would also like to say, panelists, do you have any final closing thoughts, closing statements?
No, this was a ton of fun. I mean, I learned stuff, so I've got some theories that I want to go research. And I love the Valor theory.
Yeah, I think dragons in the Cosmere is something that we're going to see more in the future of the Cosmere. Like Tyler kind of opened us up with saying, the reason we don't have so many dragons early on is because when Brandon was writing these books, he thought it was a dragon-saturated market with Aragon, How to Train Your Dragons and the such. And so I think going into the future of the Cosmere, we're going to see more dragons. And of course with Dragonsteel, we're going to see more dragons. The books, not the company. And so we are going to get more dragons in the future. If you're interested in seeing more of my crazy theories, like why the one from the Iriali is the Shard Reason, QR code.
Yes.
Go to my YouTube channel. Also check out Cosmere Conversations because their podcast is very fun.
I want to say Brooke and I purchased several of the Next Step coins to support Brandon's latest project. We have one that just the first person, for any reason whatsoever, you could be collecting, you could really want the letter and coin. If you come up here and ask me about it, I will give you that letter. And with that, I think that it's time to say goodbye. Could we get a big hand for Rachel, Dylan, Brooke? It has been an incredible Dragonsteel Nexus. Thank you all so much. I hope that you have a fantastic closing couple of hours here and get home safe wherever home happens to be for you. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
The Dragon panel was so much fun. Really appreciated our fellow panelists, Rachel and Dylan, who joined us, but mainly appreciated all of the people who came out to check out our Dragons in the Cosmere panel, some of whom dropped by afterwards to ask special questions, and I want to hear from them and get maybe some updated information now that we've had Kolos Head Munching Day.
Brandon's been talking a lot about dragons lately.
It's no holds bar anymore. Dragons are in the Cosmere, and they are coming for us strong and often. So let's hear from Matthew.
My name's Matthew, and this is kind of for anybody. We've seen a lot about the different shards just working together and or being combined into one vessel. We know of two I know personally of two currently. Do you think that there's a possibility that there will be more? And if so, which ones will probably be paired up into one vessel?
I think this is an interesting question, an interesting thought. I personally at least hope that we are not going to see other combinations of shards. I just feel like it would be kind of boring if every time we get a story with shards in it, it's about them combining. We already have 2 double shards with the potential that Devotion and Dominion have also merged, and I feel like that's enough in the Cosmere. I do think that it's very fun to speculate about what the combinations of different shards would be and would be like. And I think we're going to do an episode in the future that is sort of springboarding from another Dragonsteel Nexus panel, the music in the Cosmere panel.
Definitely. Where
the panelists did some incredible musical work building songs for each shard and showing some combinations of potential shards. We're going to talk about that here on the podcast. So I'm really excited to theorize more about that in the future.
Yeah, overall, I don't think I have too much to add to Matthew's question, but I do think that from the spoiler stream that Brandon did, he was asked specifically about a previous word of Brandon when he said there was only one dragon vessel. That was the original word of Brandon. And he corrected himself. He was like, I don't know why I said that. There's 2 dragon vessels.
Right. So at least part of Dylan's theory presented in this panel has been proven incorrect subsequently. Sorry, Dylan.
But there are, big hopes for other aspects. And so I do think dragons make an interesting example for vessels. Cultivation, the way that she slow plays, her future in the Cosmere. The other assumption is Valor, definitely a slow player, like willing to hide out for thousands of years and not be seen. Like it's just the dragons make interesting vessels for shards. I'll just put it that way. And I'm excited to get a lot more from those shards who we also believe are dragons.
We've got quite a few questions about Valor. Let's go to this one from Bryant.
Yeah, so what's your name?
Bryant, and it was a question I submitted. It was do you think Valor could be or was on Dromonad? Because there's perpendicularity on Patchy, and it requires a lot of bravery to be able to traverse Patchy, and I think that Valor could be a good fit for that perpendicularity, whether or not she's still there.
It's good speculation. We always got to keep our eye out for Valor. Pat G, or Dromonad, was a hidden planet for a long time. Valor, you know, a Heidi type. But I think it has been confirmed that Pat G is an autonomy avatar, an avatar of autonomy.
Correct. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that no other shard has ever visited Dromonad. But I don't know. The dots are not really connecting for me at this point. I would need a little bit more evidence to say that it's possible or likely that Valor was also on Dromonad.
I could see a visitor. Maybe Valor is visiting all the planets. Like we don't know what Valor is doing. And there is the potential of, you know, there's just a lot of planets out there in the Cosmere that are not shard worlds.
Yeah.
And so maybe all of them, but then I don't necessarily think that visiting a planet immediately makes you the primary shard power of that planet.
Yeah.
So we know that like the true tones of Rashar are honor and cultivation, and then eventually odium, all true tones. But I think if Valor showed up tomorrow on Rashar, he wouldn't necessarily immediately become a true tone.
Correct.
Same is maybe true for Dromonad as well. Visited, but I wouldn't say it's the true tone of Dromonad.
Fisher has a related question for us.
Yeah, let's just roll right into this one.
My name's Fisher. It's probably for Dylan, but anyone can answer it. It's about light, the Valor theory, and sort of when Valor arrives. So I guess, when do you think Valor would have arrived on Roshar within this theory? And then, given that, do you think Valor's signature would be present in the High Storm, in Honor Spren, in Stormlight?
I think that if Dylan's theory is correct, Valor would have had to have arrived prior to Honor.
Early.
Like Valor would have had to been the first shard on Rashar, and then it hides itself when Honor arrives and just hangs out there hiding until that first clash between Honor and Odium, when the fourth moon is revealed, and then we have all of this speculation that maybe it's Valor.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. If it's going along with the fourth moon crashing, that event happens before the arrival of Honor and Cultivation.
Yeah.
So they can see the remnants of that collision, but the speculation would be that Valor was always there hiding.
Yeah.
And, you know, is it possible, you know, Dylan has presented this theory that maybe the power of Valor and the vessel of Valor split, and that the vessel is no longer on Rashar. And perhaps that leads back to the previous question, is like, what if the vessel just went to Dromonad? What if the vessel was moving around, but the power was the thing that was still hidden on Rashar?
Well, I mean, we have confirmed that the vessel of Valor still exists. It has not died. There are still two dragon vessels.
Right, yes.
I think it's pretty safe to assume that that is still Valor. That
Yeah, I guess.
Melantorius...
Of course. No. I'm not leaning into that. I'm saying, like, what if it's possible that there's more division between the vessel and the shard?
I don't think that is possible.
Yeah, but what if it is possible?
I don't think it is possible.
I think that we don't know what Valor's doing. How does Valor hide, and like, what is the nature of their ability to hide? It might be because of a division where you're not using or acting with the power, and it like sits dormant in a way. If Valor could convince the power of Valor that the best way to operate was for the power to lay dormant.
To like do the opposite of valorous things. To just sit by and watch the people of Rashar and be like, I'm not going to do anything valorous.
It is. I mean, they're not doing anything.
I mean,
valorous.
hiding is the opposite of valor, basically.
According to you, but not according to the power of valor.
Maybe.
I mean,
You
yes,
don't know that.
but we know what's happening. We know that Valor is not out there like leading charges into battle. He's not doing, or she is not doing something that is outwardly and acknowledged by everyone. It's hiding, like you said, which seems to be the opposite of what Valor is. And so therefore you have to somehow convince the power of Valor that it is a valorous action to hide. Like, I don't think there's disagreement between them. I think there's so much agreement between them.
I think that just because some of the shards are not able to see Valor doesn't necessarily mean that it's doing nothing.
I agree. Yeah.
That would only be the case if it is true that Valor is on Rashar, which is still a big question mark and speculation. It's 100% equally possible that Valor is elsewhere in the Cosmere and has simply figured out a way to cloak herself or cloak her power. And that she is, in fact, doing lots of valorous stuff, and we just can't see it.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. And I do think a dragon would be most suited to figuring out that type of question.
Right.
Because they are often, you know, like cloaking their power. They literally have two forms that present differently in their normal state before they become a shard. And so the concept of like, I'm in my human form and I can just walk around and people don't know that I am a dragon. Now they are a shard, but they can maybe walk around in a non-shard looking form. In the same way that like a return, Vasher, is able to change their form and go from being a god of Hallandren to a like street urchin dude who's not easily seen, or, you know, it's kind of like, I think dragons would be good at remaining hidden.
To the second part of this question of like, if Valor is on Rashar, would its power be present in some of the manifestations of investiture? I think that's another great point, and maybe kind of pokes a hole in this theory also, because I don't think there's really anything that we see that could even be a hint that there is some other kind of investiture infused in these things. There is a little bit of a voice in the back of my mind saying that there's like one mention somewhere of perhaps a fourth tone, but I could legitimately be completely making that up.
Well, I'm going to go, you know, full bits and bobs spoilers. I think that if we are to believe that Valor arrived prior to the shards, then yes, Valor is a true tone and would appear to those who arrived later to be the tone of Rashar. But there's already two things. There's the actual true tone of Rashar that existed when Ada Nalsium created it. And then there would be Valor, who worked themselves first into that tone. Then you have Honor and Cultivation arrive, and they're like, oh, this is the default state, but it's not the default state. It's already been changed once to have Valor.
Yeah.
But then they merge, and then eventually Odium merges, so that there would always be, which is why what I mentioned in the panel is this speculation that Valor is hiding in plain sight, and a bit about what you just mentioned regarding like Valor doing valorous actions all the time. Yes, they're doing valorous actions, and they're allowing the Alethi and other Vorin people to call that honor. But that's not honor. Honor is just about making oaths and living up to the oaths. But the Alethi so often are like doing valorous deeds in combat and stuff.
And I think that totally makes sense. I think that if Valor was actually on Rashar, we would see more seepage of the power of Valor in Spren or Light or perpendicularity. Like there would be some indication of a power there. I guess unless Valor really does just have this incredible cloaking ability and they're able to completely keep all of their investiture within the spiritual realm or something. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just don't think that it's very likely.
There is one person who did that one time. Some pretty valorous actions. And I'm talking about the bearer of agonies, Taln.
Oh.
Taln has a connection to what we have called the power of Rashar. And we believe that all heralds have this connection to the power of Rashar.
Yeah.
But used the power of Rashar to fight. Ash used the power of Rashar. What if it's not the power of Rashar? What if it is the power of valor? Because while Taln is a great example of being honor-bound, holding up his oaths, like I will not break, and he never does, he's also a good example of valor. And so maybe like valor is channeling the release valve is Taln, is people like Taln or people like Adolin, which is the other thing. The unoathed are not of honor, they are of valor.
Yeah.
Whew, man, fun speculation, but let's roll on to the next one, which comes from Zach and is about the mating habits of dragons and humans.
Hi, my name's Zach. This question is for everybody on the panel. I have two things. One that was brought up in the panel was if a human and dragons mate. I hate to Occam's razor this, but it really seems like the Shadel, which are the only other race that we know on Yoland that's described as tall, lizard-like, multiple arms. Kind of seems like that would be the answer as to why they're not only the third race on Yoland, but why they're dragon offspring.
Love it. So yes, the Shodel are described as somewhat lizard-like, and this combination of dragons and humans could lead to the third race. I mean, we definitely know that like singers and humans can mate and eventually get to the Herdazians, so...
We do have a recent word of Brandon saying that dragon children are dragons.
Yeah.
And would appear human in their humanoid form, and of course draconic in their dragon form. So I don't think this is correct. It's probably more likely an environmental pressure that is selecting for lizard-like multiple arm attributes in the beings on that planet.
We also see from Isles of the Emberdark a species of not bird-like people that look bird-like.
Well, bird-like, but not birds.
Exactly.
Yes.
They are not connected to birds.
Correct.
They just have evolutionary pressures, as you said, that like give them feathers and avian-looking features.
Yeah.
But they're not actually like mixed with birds in their past.
Right. Convergent evolution.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that may be what the Shodel, you know, have in common with the dragons is they're just like a reason that lizards are popular on Yolan. We don't even know if dragons
Lizards
are native.
are popular.
Yeah.
They have so many friends. Everybody likes them.
They- I
and they're
mean-
always voted for homecoming president.
Homecoming president is great. I think it's homecoming king and queen.
Whoops.
But no, I'm interested because we don't know a lot about the Shodel. We do think
Yeah.
that Yumi has an example of Shodel, and
Yeah.
we also think that there is a ending moment of the Sunlit Man that introduces some Shodel, but they've managed to stay very in the background. And the Cosmere so far has been very human-centric, but we know that it's not. And in its past, like, it seemed equal that dragons, humans, and Shodel kind of all lived on Yolan. Maybe not in pure numbers, but at least societally. It was like they all knew each other. It wasn't like dragons were all hidden.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, they had cities and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. I think the Shodel were the same. So very interested to see what happened to our Shodel friends.
Let's go to our next question about dragons and potentially Adonalsium.
Because Noadon in the spiritual realm seems to be not necessarily Noadon, and we have no reason to believe that Adonalsium himself did not necessarily have a vessel. Do we think that Noadon might have been a dragon, the previous vessel for Adonalsium, who clearly would have stuck around being highly invested after the shattering, and when he popped Honor up on his knee, that was his way of being like, "Sup, kid, you came from me."
Right. Yeah, this is heavy speculation regarding Noadon. I think there's something to Noadon, and you know, I've already speculated multiple times in these follow-ups to our panels about Noadon and what they are. Maybe an echo of Adonalsium.
Yeah, I think there's a good possibility that Noadon is in some way related to Adonalsium. I'm still not 100% convinced that Adonalsium had a vessel, we don't have proof that it didn't. So it's really just pick your lane.
Yeah, I do kind of like this idea of Noadon wanting to usher or in some way raise the power of honor because it came from Noadon. And I like that concept. I don't know if it's accurate, but I do think that there's something to that. Like Noadon maybe is the force that wants to unite them. And so like sees, oh, if I raise honor up right, then there will be more likely an opportunity to unite them in the future.
Yeah, there was a question asked at Dragonsteel Nexus during the spoiler Q&A about if Hoyd and Tom Bombadil from the Lord of the Rings are like the same character or the same type of character. And Brandon said no, while there is some continuity in the inspirations for those characters, they are not the same. Now I want to ask if Noadon and Tom Bombadil are the same, because that's a little bit more of the vibe I get from Noadon, is this like sort of divine uncle who knows a lot of stuff and is sort of like caretaking for different aspects of the universe, but is not really involved directly.
And doesn't get an answer. That's like the big thing with Tom Bombadil. Is there's no definitive answer.
Yeah.
And so I love that call is like, Noadon's just a thing. He just exists in the Cosmere. We have no idea what existed pre-shattering, but we should guess that some of the same basic rules apply, which is like large amounts of investiture lead to something possible like a cognitive shadow. We now know the spiritual shores where the dragons like go to rest. What if one of them doesn't go to the spirit shores? Like, do they become a Noadon who's just like wandering around the Cosmere?
Yeah, a dragon just like pulls a Kelsier and is like, just kidding, I'm not going to go to the beyond.
Yeah, why would we think that Kelsier's the first one to just be like, I'd rather not go to the spiritual shores?
Yeah.
We know that dragons have a human form, so like, you know, no big deal there. And it could just be like the cognitive shadow of a dragon, an ancient dragon from the past.
It could be anyone's cognitive shadow that has just persisted for 20,000 years or whatever and like become its own entity essentially. Yeah.
Right. That's kind of like why I like the idea of it's Tom Bombadil. It might not get a perfect answer, and it also is probably beyond the understanding or comprehension even of things like the shards. I would love if Power of Honor eventually, you know, has enough sentience, it breaks off of retribution and is like, I'm gonna go my own way, blah blah blah. And then somebody's like, hey, what about that Noadon? He's like, oh yeah, I don't know what that guy is, bye. Like even the shard powers or the vessels don't know what Noadon is. I like that idea quite a bit.
Let's go to our final Valor question from Jake.
Hi, I'm Jake. This is directed at Dylan, but I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on it. I really liked Dylan's theory on how Valor and where they might show up, and I'm starting to subscribe to it more and more. My question is, it feels with the state of retribution and his threat to the Cosmere, leaving the shard of Valor seems like a wildly irresponsible thing to do at this moment. Like, I know Dalinar was like, hey, Honor, you have to, go figure things out for yourself. Seems like a bad idea now. It seems like there needs something else there. Otherwise, retribution would take it. How do we feel? Where do you think that shard would go to? Because I feel like it would need someone. My suggestion is potentially Adolin, just because we see him in the 5th book just really say, I don't like oaths, however, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and protect all of the people that I care about.
Now, this was based on something that, as we said, we corrected, or Brandon, gave us more information that Dylan didn't have during the panel. So I don't think that Metalantorius, the vessel, is separate from the power of Valor.
Right. I agree. And I mean, Jake makes a great point. That would be a really irresponsible thing to do, to just be like, let me leave this huge chunk of power here. Bye. And fortunately, it seems like that is not what has happened. Metallentorius, I think it's safe to assume, is still in possession of the Shard Valor. I do really like the call that a potential future vessel of Valor could be Adolin.
Yeah.
For exactly these reasons, that he doesn't necessarily like the oaths that Honor is such a fan of, but he clearly is incredibly brave and dedicated to protecting other people. And there were so many times in Wind and Truth that I was like, oh my God, is Adolin gonna become Honor? Like, he was just doing so many incredible things and really living up to ideals, even if they were not Knight Radiant ideals, that I feel like he should be rewarded.
I don't know if everybody gets rewarded for doing good things, but
Yeah.
I also agree that the vessel and the shard power don't appear to be separate, though, as previously mentioned, I do think what is happening with Valor is purposeful and also seemingly not an obvious example of valorous behavior. So somehow Metallentorius convince the shard power that what they are doing and how they are behaving is valor. The shard power can't do something that's not valor, and so what they are doing, in my mind, has to be a valor.
We don't know what they're doing.
We don't know what they're doing.
Whatever it is, it must be valorous.
Yeah, because I don't feel like it is splitting the power as we saw with Rasa and Odium. It doesn't seem like there was a constant fight or anything. I think it's perfectly in alignment. I think Metallentorius is a great vessel for Valor, and they are in perfect alignment with Valor. And that's what we will hopefully eventually get some confirmation on. But whatever's happening right now, which we don't know, I don't think that it is happening via a disagreement between the vessel and the shard power. I think they're perfectly aligned. And so it's weird that it seems to be hiding or able to hide itself, but I think that is of Valor. And that's why everybody is so gung-ho on, like, we need to go find Valor. Hoyd is looking for Valor. Hoyd wants Valor. And I think that's because Hoyd knows Valor's in alignment. Like, Valor's doing the thing that Valor needs to do, and we just need to convince Valor to help us out. But
I mean, maybe Hoyd just wants to see his ex-girlfriend.
I don't think that he wants to see that ex-girlfriend. I got the vibe that that was not a kind breakup. We'll put it that way.
Hopefully we will find out in the future. This dragon panel was so much fun. I had a great time with our fellow panelists talking about everything we currently know about dragons, and also getting into some wild speculation about the dragons that we have not seen on the page.
I got to give a big shout out to Dylan for making it so that I was not the craziest person on the panel. Thank you, my friend.
Check him out, Cosmere Horizons. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you to everyone who came to our panel at Nexus. And until next time, life before death,
strength before weakness,
journey before destination.